Hello. If I was to describe the backward design approach, simply put, the way I see it, it is simply saying, as above, so below. Form follows function, and vice versa. The backward design approach really reminds me of something that I learned in my educational psychology class, where he delineates between the standards reference and standards based lessons. And this feels very much so just a reiteration of that with some finer detail mixed in. Why is it going to argue both general educational objectives and unit level and specific instructional objectives? Okay, again, form follows function. If you keep in mind the objectives you want to carry out over the course of the year, you can delineate how much time you want for each objective and maybe see where some of them blend in to each other, like when planning a lesson. Some things have to come before you can teach other things, and I feel like with some of the objectives that I have seen, some things have to follow before others. So some lessons, some goals you might want to put in earlier lessons uh, before later units, and that also goes down to like the lesson level. You can't put the cart before the horse. What is the function of each and how they complement each other? I feel like this is kind of being restated a couple ways that are actually the same. Give me 1 second. Okay, so the educational objectives are kind of the big picture, and instructional objectives for individual lessons are kind of like how that manifests itself in your classroom. One, of course, will mirror the other. I feel like one's just the practical application of the other. So the educational objective is the big picture, and the instructional objective is just you parsing out the fine details. It's not very different from one another. One is just the actual application of it. How do standards fit into objectives? I would say that it's really objectives that fit into standards, not the other way around. Again, where the objective is you just kind of breaking down the what this objective would look like if a student exhibited it, if they acted upon it, if they completed it. Uh, I will say one thing, just anecdotally, the explain why it's a good idea to use both general educational objectives at the unit level and specific instructional objectives for individual lessons. I will say, in high school, I feel like there was always kind of a crunch uh, for my teachers where some of them maybe weren't great at planning everything, and so they didn't quite figure out like, oh, I we took too long on this unit and that unit. And I always thought it was kind of mean, just like, oh, I'm cramming before a test. But I also feel like a lot of my teachers who maybe didn't plan so well in hindsight, they definitely didn't utilize using general education objectives and planning around like the bigger picture stuff and how that would look. So yeah, I think that when you take stock of educational objectives, you kind of like you get a big picture of what you're expected to cover in a year, and then you can break it down unit by unit, lesson by lesson, and as more of our educational system becomes test based, everything's taught to do a test. I feel like it's going to be more important that we are able to, as efficiently as possible, get as much content in as possible, for better or for worse. So, yeah.